It's my clock says on my computer says 1:30, so I think that we should go and get started, be respectful of people's time. And I start out with kind of a little Staff Recognition Week message so that not missing anything if they miss first minute or two. So I do want to welcome everyone to the email management and upcoming policy changes session. My name is Susan Groshong. I am your intermittent host for this session. I do have another session that I need to introduce in the middle of this one, but I'll be back at the end as well. I do want to thank you for taking the time to invest in your own development and participate in this year's Staff Recognition Week training seminars. We're happy to be able to bring you 30 sessions over the next 3 days of learning and hope that you can participate in some of the other activities that are available for staff in appreciation of what you do this week as well. Now I'd like to go on and introduce and thank our presenter, Joanne Luton. She is the Director of Records and Information Management. So thank you, Joanne, for bringing us this important and interesting topic. I'm going to go on and turn off my mic and let Joanne take it from here. Thanks, Joanne.
Okay, thank you so much, Susan. I am privileged and looking forward to presenting some information to you on email management and to give you a heads up about an upcoming policy change. Yes, I've been piping that news for a year or two now, but it's really coming soon. The check's in the mail, something like that. So I am the Director of Records and Information Management. I am located off of campus, but over on 2910 Lamone Boulevard. Just a pleasure to work with all of our campuses on records management in general. But today we're going to focus on email management. So let me go ahead and get started on this. So our goals for today are to be aware of our current state of email, because a lot of our situation is just not realizing how much email we have and how huge the email umbrella can be. We're going to understand the risk of keeping everything. I'm not saying that any of you are hoarders or that you keep it all, but just so that you know what the risk is if you know someone or have a friend that does those kinds of things. We do have a draft email policy that is hopefully going for approval right now as we speak. It's not final yet, but we'll talk a little bit about that today. And we'll do a very brief best practices and some email cleanup tips at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. This data is now about almost 9 months old, but it gives you a ballpark idea of how many email accounts we have and what our volume is. We have about 50,000 active email accounts for staff and about 300,000 for students. We have about 1 billion stored email messages. Those are now stored on the cloud. They were stored on servers on the university campuses throughout the state, and now they have moved to the cloud, and we did that migration back in January and February. You may remember that, remember that you had to log out of email and back in, and there's some special things that happened if you wanted to access your email messages on phones, tablets, those types of things, but that occurred a few months ago now. We are growing by 46 gigabytes of email data per day. And to put that into a number that is visually something that you can kind of feel and see or think about, that is equal to 200,000 200-page books every day. That's how much our email is expanding daily. That's a huge volume. Last year, that amount was 34 gigabytes. So we've increased by 12 gigabytes a day in just 1 year. We do have more than 20 years of email that are on our in our system in Microsoft Outlook. We have daily receipts that near about 1 million emails every day. Now, 32% of those approximately are spam or threats that are stopped and filtered out by IT. But the bad news is that leaves 677,000 plus emails that we have to manage daily with our staff. So it's a big job. So some issues and concerns that have resulted in change in the last year or so, we have, and this still happens right now, we have some former employees, students, and retirees that have had university records and DCL4 or protected data in their email accounts when they left employment, left a project, left the university as a student, retired, whatever the case might be. Sometimes we have individuals who are taking university data with them when they leave, just because we haven't, closed accounts, haven't deleted the data. We also have situations where employees are transferring from one department to another. And when they leave, they're just taking their email account with them and all of the data from the prior department with them also. In the past, we have not had a routine transfer of historical emails to archives. It was, we do a great job of transferring paper records to archives, but sometimes the electronic information gets overlooked. And through all of the concerns that we have to remember that the university has a legal and regulatory responsibility for the security and all of the information that we have housed in our email system. So this issue has cropped up over the last couple of years and has risen to a point where change has to occur. So some facts and risks is that email is a transactional communication tool. It was not originally meant to be a repository where we just store everything and don't ever delete anything. We've already talked about that daily increase in the volume of email receipts. So with 1 million emails coming in every day, it's important to manage our email. Another factor is that some users do not manage their accounts effectively. We know that because there are some employees who keep everything, and then we have those who delete everything, who don't keep anything. And in reality, we should be somewhere in between where we keep the important things and delete the garbage. We also know that we rely on employees to determine what is or isn't a record. And so there's some risk involved there. And we currently have about 900 retention authorizations. So it's hard to remember everything about what records we need to keep and when to destroy them. So there have been some risk factors in the past that we plan to address in the near future. So since we talked about what is a record and what isn't, I just wanted to show you this quick slide. Just, a record is something that contains operational information, or it documents official duties, business activities, policies, procedures. It'll have value. It may be historical. It may be on legal hold, so you can't delete it. It also would be listed on the university retention schedule and state that we need to keep a document that is a record for a certain period of time. So basically you have two choices to make when you look at your emails. Is this a record or isn't it? The non-records, you want to delete as soon as you can. Those are rot, redundant, obsolete, and trivial information. They don't have any business value after you've received them or taken care of it. It's a copy of something somewhere else, or it's not received or created in the course of university business. So that's a very brief snapshot of how to determine if it is a record or not, but then you have to determine if it is a record, how long do I keep it? So the thing that we've really been focusing on this last year is deleting the non-records, because if you don't need to keep a record, the retention has expired, it's time to let those go so that we can reduce risk. Now, there have been a lot of data privacy regulations that we have to adhere to, and there have been new ones over the last several years. So I'm not going to go into each one of these, but this does apply to our email in addition to all of the other services that we provide. So there's FERPA that we're all familiar with, HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. All of these have been around for a while, but newly since 2018, we have GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation that protects the privacy of individuals that are European citizens or that are traveling in the United States. And that new law has already had 578 million fines assessed to 28 different countries for companies that have violated that privacy regulation. Just to give you a feel for one of those big fines, Marriott International had a mega breach in 2018, and they were fined $230 million for releasing private information in that data breach. British Airways, I'm sorry, Marriott was fined 123 million and British Airways was 230 million. The California Consumer Privacy Act is relatively new. That was passed last year. and it basically mimics the GDPR. And we're going to have the same thing in Missouri soon. We've already had 3 versions of that legislation introduced. Hasn't passed yet, but it will happen shortly. So it's very important that we protect the information that we manage on a day-to-day basis. And these are just a few of the privacy regulations that impact what we keep. So I wanted to give you some examples of some of the protected information that we may have in our email accounts. The ones that are in red listed here are HIPAA indicators, or the Health Insurance and Portability and Accountability Act. So those are PHI, personal health indicators, and it's critical that we keep that information secure. But there's additional information that other legislation and data privacy regulations will require that we protect. And just to show you how far-reaching some of this is, it's kind of funny in a way, but even your horoscope in the state of California is protected information. So, you know, in addition to the things that we think are critical and that are like social security numbers, credit card information, medical information in the state of California, you cannot release horoscope information either. So that was a little far reaching, but just be aware of all these items that may be protected. Now, there have been some recent worldwide and university events that have caused changes and are resulting in changes. So there have been several security incidents that were due to phishing and spoofing in the last 2 years at the university. Actually, I can think of 4 off the top of my head. We've had, they were all the result of employees or students that had inadvertently given unauthorized access to our email system by responding to phishing and spoofing schemes. So employees and students accidentally either gave out their user ID and passwords or used their university user ID and password on a different system that was hacked. But all of those things have resulted in large scale data losses that ended up in the news. An example of one of those was last year. I believe there were 187,000 patients' information that potentially was leaked as a result of a phishing and spoofing scam to one of our email systems. We were #1 on the cover of the HIPAA news, and that's not where you want to be in the news, is for being #1 that month for a data breach in healthcare. So we've had some serious situations in the past, and we have to take serious action to resolve those types of issues going forward. The average cost of a data breach in the US is $8.19 million. And at this point in time in the world, it's not a matter of when you're going to have a data breach. It's not a matter of if you're going to have one, it's going to be a matter of when you have one. So it's very important that we manage our data so that if we do have a data breach, that the impact is minimal to anyone that's impacted by that. So as a result of some of these actions, we have created an email policy team, and I am on that team. I'm working with legal, risk management, compliance, and audit and IT. And so we have proposed several changes, and I'm going to talk about those throughout the presentation. Now, we talked about phishing and spoofing scams. I wanted to share this information with you about some tests that IT performed in 2019 and 2020. And I'm going to focus on the most recent ones on this spreadsheet. They have occurred since then. But in August of 2020 and September 2020, IT sent a test, a phishing and spoofing test, to about 13,000 individuals to see if employees at the university would give up their user IDs and passwords and phishing and spoofing scams. And we had, in September of 2020, 542 people who failed that test and provided information or clicked that link. That is about a 4% failure rate. In addition to that, we have icons on our Outlook that we're supposed to notify IT in the event that we receive something that looks like a phishing or spoofing scam. And only 756 employees did that at about a 5% rate. So overall, we had about 10% of employees that either gave out information they shouldn't give or that notified IT. The other 90% did nothing. And so This was a eye-opening experience about how we need to improve education about email management and phishing and spoofing schemes, because these are a very large threat, and the criminals are getting much better at what they do. I wanted to say too, unfortunately, in August and September, there were 33 individuals that gave out their user ID and password information in both August and September. So I can assure you that they have received extensive educational training on phishing and spoofing since that time. And also, just in full openness, that health test, the phishing and spoofing test, was done at missouri.health.edu email addresses. So it's pretty targeted towards healthcare. This is going to result in some work habit and culture changes. So in the past, I think we thought, oh, it's the email, we can do whatever we want to with it, but we're going to be following our acceptable use policy that we've had out there for many years, and making sure that we view email as more of a corporate tool and not as a personal item, that with email and our other IT systems. So an example of that is, I am retired from the state of Missouri. When I left the state of Missouri, the day I left, my email box was shut off, and I no longer had access to email because I was no longer an employee, and that was a corporation, and that was gone. And that happens at many other places of employment, that this is only for acceptable use for business purposes. And so we'll be heading further in the direction of a corporate view of email accounts as we continue forward. You will be required to take action to save important emails in the future. In the past, if you did nothing, emails just stayed there. We will be going to an automatic email sweep at some point in the next year. And in order to save important emails that need to be stored, you will have to take action to move them to a subfolder. And I will show you how to do that in a little bit. We also need to stop hoarding data that's not being used for a business purpose. So I'm going to give you an example about that happened to a friend of mine from the state of Virginia. She was going to go to a university in Virginia, applied for that school in 1990. So we're talking 31 years ago. She applied to go to the school, was accepted, but chose not to go there and went somewhere else. Last year, she was notified that her information from that application was involved in a data breach. And so her name, address, social security number, date of birth, driver's license number, all that information was involved in that data breach. She didn't even go to school at that particular university, but they kept her application information for 30 years, and it ended up getting hacked. So that's an example of keeping information that we don't need longer than we have a business purpose for it. So it's important to keep what we need to do our business processes and delete it after that. In the future, there's going to be personal responsibility for the information or the data we hold. So if we have a policy that says, you do not respond to phishing and spoofing scams, and you do not keep reports of personal health information for all of your patients that are visiting your clinic today, you do not keep that in email for longer than 10 days. If you do not follow those policies and procedures, there will be personal responsibility for not following that. Another thing that we've done that's a culture change is their IT has been, for about the last year now, tagging external emails. So if you get an email from outside of the university, it comes in, I believe, in red, at least on my email account, and it has a little tag on it that says this is from an external source, be careful giving out information to these. So that's to help you identify potential phishing and spoofing scams. Storage locations are going to change in the future. IT will let us know more information about that, but I've heard that Box will be going away in August. I've also heard that storage locations like our shared drives will be going away, and we'll be moving to things like OneDrive and SharePoint Online in the future. So be aware that some storage locations are going to change, and there will be additional mandatory training coming soon. One of those items will be on the new email policy. So when you do your annual training for security those types of things. You'll have a module on email training also. Some email policy goals and changes that are going to occur is we're going to reduce the overall number of counts and quantity of data. So an example of that is individuals who are no longer active will have their accounts locked and then deleted after they terminate employment. An example of this is currently the proposal for inactive students is to lock and delete their accounts a year after their last period of enrollment, unless they ask for an extension. So there will be a way to get around those locks and deletes if the department or individual needs to keep that information a little longer, but things aren't just going to sit out there forever. We're going to eliminate storing DCL4 or highly restricted data in email accounts. That will be things like social security numbers, HIPAA data. You'll have 10 days to eliminate that from your email account after receipt. So you'll have to take action with the information that you receive, maybe move that document to the proper storage location, but it will have to come out of email accounts. There will be a prohibition against transmitting certain types of information except through encrypted means. If you are sending information outside of the university and you need to encrypt that data because there's date of births in it or medical information or social security numbers or credit cards, make sure that you talk to your IT rep at your campus so that you can find out how to share that information in an encrypted way. There will be an automatic sweep of inboxes and sent items and deleted items, but subfolders will not be swept. And I'll show you a visual of that in just a moment. The current proposal for the inboxes and sent items is 5 years. So anything that's over 5 years old, once we start doing the automatic daily sweeps, will go away unless you have moved that item out of your inbox and sent item and into a subfolder. Deleted items will be 30 days. And it will be prohibited for anyone to auto forward university email accounts to a non-university account. So I'm going to show my age here a little bit. I just happen to have an AOL account that I've had since email started, I think. But I cannot get around all of these policies and the automatic sweep by forwarding my whole university email account to my joanneluton@aol.com account. That will be prohibited. Plus, you don't want to do that because as soon as you send something to your personal email account, that makes that account discoverable if you send work information to that and there's some type of lawsuit and you get involved in a legal hold or request for information. So it's not a good idea to forward work things to your personal email account. We're also going to prohibit the use of university passwords on non-university systems. So an example of that was one of the student data breaches. Some students used their university paw print, user ID, and passwords on non-university systems. That account got hacked, and that's how they ended up getting into the university email account, was because they were able to get that user ID and password from somewhere else. You only want to use your university password and user ID on university systems. So there will be a process to extend the use of email post-graduation or post-retirement. Emeritus professors will be grandfathered in, so they'll be able to keep their email. Current retirees, they'll be able to keep their email accounts. But going forward, it must be a mutually beneficial situation for an individual to keep their email account post-retirement or post-graduation. There will be a strict adherence to email box quotas. In the past, that cap was 15 megabytes per email address. There were some exceptions that were made in the past. The quota has increased now. I believe it's 25 megabytes per email address, but there will no longer be any exceptions to that quota size. And with that daily sweep of emails going away, anything over 5 years old, potentially that will take care of the issue also. And as I said earlier, there will be penalties for non-compliance, and those could be up to and including termination for willful neglect of these policies and not abiding by them at all. So here's a visual of some of the change that's coming. So there's going to be those automatic daily sweeps. Inbox and sent items will be 5 years from the date of receipt or date sent. Subfolders will not be swept. So if you look at the highlighted portion of the top of my photo here, you can see my inbox of lutonje@umsystem.edu. I've got my deleted items there, sent items. And then I have 3 other email boxes that I manage that are resource accounts. And so each one of those boxes has a megabyte size quota, and each one of those boxes has sent items and deleted items. So the 5 years will apply to each one of those inboxes, 30 days for the deleted items. And if you look below, you can see that I have added several folders, subfolders underneath my inbox. And that was for archives, ARMA, auditing, billing, budget and expenditures, those types of things. Those email subfolders will not be swept, only the inbox, sent items and deleted items. So at some point, if you've got items that are over 5 years old in your inbox, you will have to take action to move those to a subfolder or to a different system of record if you wish to retain those. Now, the exception to that will be individuals that will be covered under our capstone approach to email management. So what we're going to be doing is keeping individuals of the top leadership of the university. We're going to be keeping their emails forever to make sure that we keep that history. So individuals like President Choi, Chancellor Choi, all the chancellors from all 4 campuses, the other 3, the head of the athletics, potentially the head of the hospital, the provost. There will be a level there of individuals that all of their emails will be kept forever for historical purposes, and everyone else's will be swept after 5 years. So there are a few actions that we need to take to prepare for these daily sweeps. So I encourage you to clean up your email before that auto sweep begins and before the policy goes into effect. Because once the policy goes into effect, we will only have a period of time to become compliant with the information that we have in our email accounts. So first of all, if you don't have a personal email account for non-business email, I suggest that you create one. Try to use your university account for university business, as is required in our acceptable use policy that's currently in effect, and then use your personal email account for non-business email. I've talked to individuals who have used their university email account for their Facebook personal account. And so they're getting all of their personal Facebook notifications at their university email. Don't do that. Don't mix those two. Delete redundant, obsolete, and trivial data at the time that you receive it or after it's expired. Delete outdated meeting notices and lunch invites. You can sort your email accounts in so many different ways to clean out data that is expired and not business related. I talked to another individual who had has been working on cleaning out her account and been doing a great job at that. She's been here for about 20 years. And she found all of her emails from when she had her first child 16 years ago, and all the congratulatory emails from her coworkers. It's time to let those things go, or print those and take those home for a record of your child's scrapbook. But do not keep that type of information in your university accounts. Do not delete any items that are on legal hold. If you're aware of any legal case, you don't ever want to delete emails or documents that are involved in that. And make sure that you follow university retention authorizations. Those are available on our website. They will be changing soon because we'll be going to a big bucket approach for records management, and that should make life easier. And hopefully we'll have a drop-down box at some point in the future too, that you can tag your emails and tag them for 5 years or 10 years or 25 years. But more information will be coming out on that in the future. Now, this tool that I'm going to show you is the #1 tip that I'm going to provide today. It does not work on Macs. So if you have a Mac, I'm really sorry. But if anybody else that's using something other than a Mac, you can open Outlook, click on folder and clean up folder and subfolders, and it will deduplicate all of your email folders, your inbox, your sent items. What that does is when you have an email chain that has gone on and on and on, and people are replying back and forth, and you're adding additional documents, it will keep any unique conversations out of that chain, and it will also keep the last conversation in that chain. So you have the full communication in that one final email, and it will send the others, the copies of that, into your deleted folder for 30 days. So I highly recommend that you do this. I know people that have run this and it has deleted, 10,000 emails out of their account just by doing this one click of cleanup folder and subfolders. And it will not delete anything that is not already a copy. So I have been doing that now for about a year, and it is a fantastic tool. I run it every day now. So when this presentation started, I was talking to Susan about the timeline. She said initially, and I said many times, that I think the first time I did this presentation, we said that the policy was going to start in September of last year. That didn't happen. Neither did October, November, December, January, February, March, April. I believe that this week the policy is going to general officers and senior leaders for approval. And so if that happens, we will have implementation probably from June to September, October, November. That timeline is not completely defined yet because IT will have to make several system changes to get that daily sweep of emails functional. So we do have two policies, actually. We started off with just an email policy, but we have broken that down into an email policy and email procedures. And the procedures are going to have the details about the 5-year sweep for inbox and sent items, and the 30 days for deleted items, and the 10 days to get PHI or highly sensitive data out of your email. So again, the implementation will hopefully be June through the fall. I can tell you that the hospital did approve this email policy that's very similar on January the 5th, and their enforcement began on February the 5th of this year. So we do have part of the university that's already operating under that policy. And IT has published a website where they're putting all of their updates, and I've got a link to that on this page, and you can find that under IT's website where they're putting all of the email policy updates. And remember, they can't steal what isn't there. The criminals can't get it if you deleted it, that this policy is still in development, and make sure that you read that final policy carefully whenever it is finally passed and you are notified that it has passed. So again, I'm going to repeat a few little things and tell you some new things, but why bother deleting those emails? I mean, some of it's garbage, and why spend that time doing that? Well, you reduce risk by reducing the redundant, obsolete, and trivial information that's out there. You reduce the risk of losing data during a data breach or an e-discovery spend. It will decrease that, because if the lawyers and IT and security officers have to go through email accounts that have 100,000 emails in them, it's going to take them a while to look for the data that they need for a legal case. Whereas if you've deleted information that was eligible for destruction, or you deleted garbage that didn't need to be out there, it will make that search much easier. It'll also improve recovery time for disasters. It'll improve compliance with all of those federal and government regulations that protect data. It'll help us adhere to retention schedules and policies, and it'll improve your productivity in searching and finding emails if you don't have as much information out there. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, well, this email isn't my problem, this is IT's problem. So I wanted to give you a little example of how to think about your email. So, email is bigger than IT. You want to think about your emails as sort of coming from the UPS man. So when you get a package, the UPS man delivers it to your door. That package was theirs till they delivered it to you, but what's in that box is all yours, and you get to deal with it. IT sort of the same way. They receive the email, they forward it to you, and once you open it, it's your package, and you get to decide what happens with it. So We talked about the final email in a chain or a thread. Who keeps that? This will help you decide whether something is a record or not. If it's an internal email, the creator is responsible for it. So if I'm sending out an email with new policies and procedures to my staff, I am going to be the keeper of that email because I was the creator of it. Now, if I receive an external email from outside of the organization, let's say I receive it from the federal government that they're wanting to audit 1099 forms or something, I would be the keeper of that email because it came from outside the university. And just make sure that you're not keeping copies of the same thing that everyone else is. So an example of that might be an email from President and Chancellor Choi saying, you know, we've got this new show me whatever challenge, and we're going to do this or that. He is the keeper of email, of that email, because he sent that out, and we don't all need to keep a copy of that. That email will be going to archives in the future because it is from leadership. So some best practices for email, try not to use it for confidential matters. You don't know how many times I have accidentally sent an email to the wrong person, and that gets really embarrassing. So, you know, try not to use it for confidential matters. Don't use it for highly complex information or for emotional issues or personal conflicts. If you are going to use an email for corresponding when you're upset, I highly suggest you draft an email and then wait a day before you send it, because people can't read your inflections and tone in email. You know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with using your telephone instead of using email. Talk to a person. With Teams now, we can chat with someone. We can call them up on Teams and see them while we're talking. So don't put everything in email just because you can, and don't put anything in email you don't want to have read in the newspaper. At my former employer, our HR person sent out an email just to give our employees, our personal employees, a heads up about a new benefit. And by the next morning, her email was already in the Jefferson City News Tribune. So once you send an email, you can't control where it goes. And also keep your email short and sweet. And if you can't answer right away, be sure to respond with an estimated time frame. And here's some more common best practices for email. Use proper grammar and punctuation. Don't write in all caps. Use emojis and graphics sparingly. There are some places that don't have the same email abilities that you do. So lots of times if I use an emoji with a smiley face, it shows up at other people's places with a J. So just be aware that sometimes what you're sending may not look the same on the receiver's end. Limit the use of abbreviations. Don't reply to all unless absolutely necessary. That just shares information out farther with lots of large attachments. You don't have to have the last word in email. You know, you don't have to say thank you and the other person say no thank you, and you say thank you more. You just at some point just let it go. Double check the address of the person you're emailing to make sure you get information to the right person, and read your email carefully before you hit the send button. Now, I wanted to share an email management approach from Vicki Pratt, somebody I'm associated with from ARMA International. It's the Association of Records Managers. Her recommendation is to set aside 15 to 30 minutes a day for email management because it can get away from you. Immediately delete, her recommendation is immediately delete all unopened email over 6 months old. Basically, she's saying if you haven't opened it in the last 6 months, just go ahead and delete it and let it go, because someone would have followed up with you if they needed something critical if you have not responded in that time. She also recommends creating folders based on whether they're records or short-term or personal, so that you can quickly go to a folder to find information that you want. And within the records folder, put subfolders based on retention authorizations, years, project, that type of information. And you might want to just block time on your calendar every day. Have a system for when you read emails. If no response is required, delete it or file it. If you can't reply within 2 minutes, if you can reply within 2 minutes, do it and get it over with. If it takes more than 2 minutes, you might want to save that for when you are working on your email account daily, or just call the person. I struggle to send emails that have large blocks of information in them. They take forever to create, and it's just simpler sometimes just to pick up the phone and take care of that business action in person. And be descriptive in your subject lines and only use one subject per email if at all possible. And whenever you get the chance, unsubscribe, unsubscribe, unsubscribe from all the things that you've signed up for many, many years. So this is my contact information. I'm going to now open the floor to questions, and I've got a couple of chat questions here. So let me look at those. Oh, so what's going to happen if you're on vacation greater than 10 days? That is a good question. I have ran that question by our IT department, and they said, well, maybe if you're gone for more than 10 days, you need to give someone else in your department access to your email account. I will say that I'm a little concerned about the 10 days. I personally think that's a little brief. I'm hoping that they're going to change that to 30, but just be aware that if you've got information that potentially has PHI in it or the highly sensitive information, that maybe you refer your emails to a resource account or something like that during your absence. If you're doing your best to comply and you're on vacation, I'm sure you'll be okay if there's something in there a few days more. But people do need to make a reasonable attempt to, of course, comply with the rest of the policies. Will sent mail be swept and deleted in the same way the deleted box will be? Yes. So deleted items go away after 30 days and then they're gone. Sent items and inbox items that are deleted after 5 years, when those are deleted, they're going to go to your deleted folder for 30 more days, and then they're going to go away. And everything will be running upon the date received or the date sent, except for the deleted items, and that's going to be from the date received in the deleted folder. So if I've got an email that's 5 years and 1 day old, and it goes to the deleted folder, it will stay in the deleted folder for another 30 days until it is deleted. Here's an example of the person who found their personal emails about her child's birth and maybe wants to keep those. You can forward those to your personal email account. That is not a problem. What is going to be prohibited is auto forwarding all of your emails to your personal account. That you cannot do. But if you have some personal item, everybody's going to have something personal that shows up in their email account over time. And you can forward that to your own email account and keep it there. Just get it out of your university account as soon as you can. Okay, on the cleanup folder tool, if you run the cleanup folder tool on the last email in the chain, what happens to attachments that may only be included in the first email? It will not delete that first email. It will keep that also. Anything that is unique and different from the email chain will be kept. It does not delete attachments that somebody may shoot in the middle of that chain. So sometimes you will actually end up with a couple of duplicates because it will not delete anything that is unique or has different attachments. So, and I have tested that many, many times, and it has worked very well, and it won't delete anything that you need to keep. Here's another question. How can we check the 25 megabyte quota? If you go to Outlook and you go to the file in the top left-hand corner of Outlook, it'll show you your box size. Let me see if I can see mine real quick here. If you go to Outlook, click File, and then it'll show mailbox settings. It'll show you how much you have free. And so I've been here about 4 years, and I've got 22.5 of 24.7 free. So I've only got about this much of my little, there's a graph bar there that shows you how much you've used. And so I'm not hoarding information too bad at this time. Let me see if there's some other chats here. I think that's all the questions I've received so far. Feel free to unmute yourself and let me know if you have any questions. We've covered a lot of data.
Joanne, I had one at the very top. When we switched to Office 365, the icon for spam went away. Should we be calling to get that back?
No, there's a new one. Actually, let me see if I can share my email.
But I don't have one anymore when we
Okay.
switched over.
It changed, and that just happened in the last month or so. So let me quit sharing my presentation and let me share with you my email screen. Where is my email? Can you see my email account information? No?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So you can see right here was where I clicked file, and here's my mailbox setting where you can see what I have free.
Nice, thank you.
Let me just see.
No, now my email's stuck.
Okay, manage.
Hang on, let me. Ugh. I hope I didn't lose anybody. Okay, let me try finding my email again.
I do see a new icon says report message way on the right. Maybe
That's it. That's it. That's where I'm going as soon as I can get my email up.
So you would click on phishing then when you send it.
What? I don't see that.
Hang on. Let me see if I can share a different, I need a bigger screen.
Mine's grayed out.
It's on the far right of my ribbon.
Oh, yeah. And then you select phishing.
I didn't even see that.
Just a second. I'm still trying to find. Can you see? Hang on. Let me see if I've got one. Are you seeing my email now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is too funny because now I can't seem to find my ribbon, and I know it's there.
Well, it's grayed out.
We can see your
Yeah.
ribbon.
It's over there to the far right.
Far right corner.
One more.
One more.
Oh, the report message. There we go. There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, but it's grayed out. So is that gonna work later?
Huh. I thought it was working already. That's
It's
kind of scary.
Mine's working.
It was working before.
Yeah,
Mine-
mine's active.
Maybe I have to. Well, I don't think they want us to open those. Let me.
I guess
Oh, there
you
we
can-
go. Once you open it, you can click it, and then it's
Okay.
not grayed out anymore.
Oh, nice.
okay.
And then let me also show you while I'm here the cleanup folder tool. So if you go to folder, cleanup folder and subfolders. Now you can see in the top left-hand portion of my screen that I have 501 deleted items. I've just ran the cleanup folder tool and it says I have nothing to delete. So that number did not change. But if it had found anything that was a duplicate, it would have moved it there and you would have seen that number go up.
I've been working on lots of folders for quite a while, and you can't even change where it drops those deleted things. So if you get nervous and want to go take a peek, you can do it before you finally delete them. So you can change where it's dropping those deleted files.
I have not tried that, but thank you for that
I've
information.
created a separate folder for it. So
I actually have more emails today. It's been crazy than I normally do. I have 31 in my inbox. I'm kind of anal about the email thing, which I guess I should be because otherwise-
Folder cleanup.
I shouldn't be teaching class, right?
well, I've been on email 30 years, or 20 or however long it's been on.
Uh-oh, and here's a personal email that just came through. I need to remove that, unsubscribe, and send it to joanneluton@aol.com. Sorry about that.
Well, they explained it to me that it would be like having your mailbox full out on your street. You wouldn't want your mailbox being stuffed full with the mail.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So any other questions?
I think
Is anybody on the call from the hospitals or the School of Nursing or anything like that? School of Medicine?
No.
Okay, they've been under this policy since January the 5th, as I said. Their email policy right now gives them 30 days to delete PHI. So I'm hoping that this new email policy that's universal over everything will also be 30 days so that they match. But just because in all honesty, I'm sharing with you the information that the proposal right now is 10 days. So I'm just letting you know that, but I'm personally hoping it goes to 30.
What
I
was
like
the,
2.
I guess I missed something. What was the 10-day if you're on vacation? Why is that important?
Because they're proposing 10 days to remove PHI from your email account once it's received.
Oh,
And
I see.
so if
Okay.
you're on vacation for 2 weeks, you're not gonna, if you don't have access to your email, you're not gonna be able to remove that within 10 days.
Right.
But there's nobody's going to apply anything that rigid, as long as you're making an effort. Now, I will say some of the data breaches that we've had have been people who've had email for 15 years. They've never deleted a report. They've got 180 some thousand patients' information in their email account, it just because they never deleted anything. That's the type of blatant abuse going forward that will not be tolerated.
Right.
We are trying to minimize, the damages if this ever happens again.
Now, when a student or a retiree leaves and they haven't touched their email for like, say, a year, will they automatically be, like turned off? Or, I mean, I know it's just for the grandfathered ones, but.
Okay. Students will be 12 months after their last period of enrollment, unless they request an extension. So if I graduate, in May of this year and I don't come back to school, May of next year, they'll lock my account and then delete it eventually.
Okay.
Now, if no one logs into an account at all, so nobody's ever logged in, they haven't read anything, it's been inactive for 6 months, there's a risk that you may get your account deleted a little sooner if you have not opened it and have not signed in, have not looked at it. I mean, as far as they know, you may be dead at that point. I mean, seriously, if there's absolutely no activity, that's going to be considered abandoned. Retirees going forward, there will be a form that can be completed. If you're working on, transferring policies and procedures or working on a committee, you've been appointed to some group or board, they're going to let you keep your email. I mean, we do that right now. We have courtesy appointments. If you need that email, they're going to let you keep it. But it is really important that you think about transferring any business information to whoever's in your unit as you depart, or as you collect that information from people that are leaving, either terminating or retiring, transferring, because I mean, I'm thinking about my own personal example. The lady who worked in this department and had the position before me, I've asked her some questions in the last 4 years, and she's sent me the email back telling me what I wanted to know with, the attachment of that data. So, I mean, I know people took stuff. I mean, and it's not intentional, but we need to do a better job of offboarding that information to something that everyone can access when we leave employment, so that we're not taking records that A, are risky, and B, that other people need to do their work.
Now, you mentioned that Box was going away and
Yes.
the shared drives were going away. Is everyone using Teams or OneDrive or?
I think it's going to be OneDrive, but I haven't really gotten that direction from IT yet. When I have a sticky note on my desk, and I don't remember when I wrote it down, but I think Beth Chancellor told me that Box was going away August 31st or August 1st. I've heard an August deadline.
All right.
Oh, hang on, here it is. Deadline to move files from Box to Microsoft 365 will be August the 1st. And I think that I saw something in an email, maybe that came from IT, that said if we don't move it before August the 1st, that they'll move it for us to Teams.
Oh,
I think we've got a little bit of time to do that. I've also heard that shared drives are going away, which that's the one that terrifies me, because that's where we compile all of our information as a department, and we all share it across, the department. And I don't know where that's going, and I don't know when it's going away, but
Well, I have a
Sure.
class at OneDrive at 3:30, I think, and so.
oh, okay.
So that'll be interesting, but when you said that, like, if someone retires and you put it somewhere else, where is that somewhere else if they're taking away shared drive?
Yeah, it's probably going to be Teams or SharePoint Online. I mean, we'll have departmental shared SharePoint sites. But what IT is basically doing is migrating all of these different locations for storage into the Microsoft 365 cloud bucket, because they're paying for all of that security, all of that storage, and these other applications many times have been, they were solutions for storage for a while, and they may not be as secure as Microsoft 365 is now. So at some point, they're wanting to quit paying for all the renewals for all of these other storage locations and store everything in one secure location. And then that also makes it easier when you have e-discovery and legal requests and those types of things to try to figure out where people's information is.
Sure. Thank you.
Could you share what you mean between shared drives and SharePoint files? What's
Okay.
that difference?
Shared drive is what we have in our department is a P drive. Does that make-
Okay,
I've heard where I used to work, it was an S drive. Everybody has their own drive that we all put our departmental records in.
sure.
So
Yeah.
because I'm in records management, you guys send us UM34 forms to store boxes of records at the record center. So we
Mhm.
store all of those forms on our P drive so we can all see them and work
Okay.
those. So that's a shared drive. SharePoint Online is a SharePoint product, but it's hosted in the cloud. Other people have been paying for, some departments have been paying for SharePoint on-premise. And so some departments have been using SharePoint, but that on-premise separate license will go away and it'll all be cloud hosted. But I don't exactly know how the security works for all of that. And I still need to learn more about that and find out from IT whether, I've heard that OneDrive is for me, SharePoint is for we, but then
Oh, okay, okay.
somebody
Okay.
told me that that's not really true. So I need to do more research on that so that at some point I can be up to speed on where all this stuff is going to.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
You've been fantastic. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We've had 2 minutes to spare, so this is fantastic.
Yay.
And I think I'm going to try to sneak into this moving box class at 3:30.
3:30.
Yeah, that's, thank you very much.
All
Thank
right,
you, everyone. And if you
All
ever
right.
have questions, just email us at recordsmanagement@umsystem.edu.
Okay, thanks,
Thank
Joy.
you.